Good day, team. Thank you so much for joining us on our new kicked off series, our leadership series on resolving conflict and having difficult conversations with somebody. All right, to start off, to kick this thing off, I want to talk about two really important concepts that are pivotal to being able to resolve conflict or having those difficult conversations. Those two concepts are first called thin slicing, and reptile brain. All right. So what is that? What is thin slicing? What is reptile brain? All right. So thin slicing is the subconscious response that your mind automatically does when you encounter a new situation or a new person or some new scenario that you've not encountered before. Your brain is automatically going to connect that new thing with a past experience. And here's the interesting thing about that. Your mind does that within the first 3 to 7 seconds of its encounter. So maybe you've been on a Zoom call, and the moment that speaker, the presenter, starts talking, you automatically feel in your gut, oh, I'm gonna love this Zoom call, or ooh, I don't like this Zoom call, because there's some connection that leader, that presenter is reminding you of a past experience, a past person, something that either was a good experience for you or a not so good experience for you as well. Your mind automatically does that within 3 to 7 seconds. It makes the determination of, I like this, it is something good for me. I don't like this, it is something unknown or I'm not sure about and could be harmful to me. Your brain's already doing that. Now, interestingly enough, that concept will lead right into the concept of reptile brain. So what is reptile brain? Reptile brain is the response that your brain does when it feels scared or threatened or some other unsure feeling about it. Let me explain. Every creature that is alive out there has an instinct about them, a gut reaction when they perceive fear, danger, something's unsafe. And that instinct you probably have heard of, it's called fight or flight. Now, we call it reptile brain because lizards and alligators and reptiles don't have an ability to be logical and reasonable and work out complicated problems like humans can. They respond to things from their environment, so they have a reptile brain. In the same way, us humans, at the front of our brains, right here, is our ability to have reason and logic and work out math problems, work out difficult solutions and so forth, right? And connect with people. In the back of the brain, and specifically in the brain stem, is where our emotions live. So here's what happens. When you perceive a situation that you perceive it as threatening, scary, harmful, this is not good for me, what literally happens, and the science on this is fantastic, what literally happens is blood that normally pumps into the front of your brain to help you deal with difficult problems and work out solutions and do math problems, etc., right, leaves the front of your brain and goes to the back part of your brain, pumps in adrenaline, pumps in more blood to give your body the ability to respond as quickly as possible to this perceived threat. So you're going to respond from an emotional adrenaline place. This is why sometimes you've experienced road rage that later you're like, oh man, why did I respond that way? It's because you got scared in the moment. Or sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment and you're in the argument with somebody and you're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with that person and you say that thing that later you regret and you say, why did I say that? I don't even think that. Or you say, you have that thought in your head of, I don't even know why I'm arguing with this person, but I can't stop arguing with them. It's because you have you have engaged in that fight or flight response, that instinct of fear, that instinct of this could be harmful to me, this is dangerous to me, so I need to either fight it or run away as quickly as I can from the scenario. And run away from the scenario could also be that my brain has just frozen in time, right? It's just stopped. I can't even think straight. I've just paralyzed mentally from that scenario because your brain has exited the scenario as well. So those two things end up influencing how we are going to respond to someone. In the next video, we're going to talk specifically how do we lessen the idea of thin slicing and how do we deal with a reptile brain. The interesting thing enough, and the reason that this is important for you to understand is, just like every human being out there, if you find yourself and those emotions just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And you're responding from that reptile brain, your reaction can cause the other person to also feel threatened, fearful, scared, damaged in some way, and they will then respond from their reptile brain. And the end result of that is you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with this person in some kind of downward spiral of that conversation, making it impossible to come up with good solutions that resolve the conflict and allow you to engage in challenging conversations. The truth of the matter is, if you can master those two things, get that under control, if you can do that, you can have any conversation that you need to have with somebody if you know how to first recognize when someone has fallen into the trap of reptile brain. So we're going to talk about that some more, but for now, I want you to consider that. Every time that you've had a scenario, and once that's done, not necessarily in the moment, but once that's done, take some time to consider to yourself, what was I really going after here? Why was my response the way it was? Why did I feel those things? And here's the tough one. What was their perception of me during that time? If I thought they were being a jerk, do they think I was the one that was the jerk? Something to consider. Anyways, we'll get more into the next videos. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you, and we'll talk again soon.